Hello everyone. In this video, we will be going over this class review worksheet. Now, I suggest you go ahead and try it yourself first, but if at any point in time you need help, feel free to refer back to this video. We're going to start with the ship class. So let's get started. In BlueJ, I'm going to go ahead and make a class. I'm going to call it ship. Now, I would advise you to go ahead and delete everything and try writing it from scratch. So, what's my class called? Well, it's ship. And remember, it's custom to capitalize our class names. Now, let's go ahead and write what our ship consists of. Well, our ship consists of a length, measured in meters, and speed, miles per hour. Now, I know realistically that ships are comprised of more than this, but for our ship, it's just going to be length and speed. Length. And I'm going to leave off the private here, just for speed, and we'll play around with that later. Alright, next, let's go ahead and write 3 constructors. The default, which means no parameters, 1 parameter, and 2 parameters. Let's go ahead and make our constructor public. That way, when we create our ship runner class, we can call these public constructors from that class. It's going to be called the same name as my class, and this is going to be default. Now, there are no instructions about what to set the private instance variables to, so I can set it to whatever I want. Let's go ahead and set it to, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and speed. Alright, I just put in some random numbers. As always, try compiling and see if it works. Awesome, we're good so far. Let's go ahead and write our 1 parameter. Now you can decide whether you want the length to be the 1 parameter or the speed. Doesn't really matter. I'm gonna go ahead and make it speed. And again, I can name this parameter variable whatever I want. And I'm just going to do that right here to show you. Now, it's always good practice though to name our parameter variable something related to whatever we're going to be using it for. So underscore speed would definitely be a better name. Oh, and I can't believe I forgot. Let's go ahead and set the length to 1. Alright, next, 2 parameters. Let's make better variable names. And let's go ahead and set our instance variables to the parameters that are passed in. Compile. Awesome. Now let's go ahead and write getters and setters for each of these instance variables. So getters, we are calling the getter method from another class. For us, it's going to be the runner class. So what access level should they be? Public. And now for the next part of my method header, what will my, my get length return? Well, length is a double, so my method should return a double. What should we call our getter? Well, it's returning the length, so why don't I call it get length? And again, you notice I'm using camel casing. Do I have to pass in any information for it to get the length? No. So no parameters. And it's going to return the length. This instance variable right here. Same thing for my get speed. Alright, let's go ahead and write our setters. Again, I'm going to be calling this from another class. So what access level should it be? Public. That way the other class can see it. What's it going to return? Well, I just want the setter to do something. I don't really want to return any value. I'm going to make it return nothing, void. And same thing with get length and get speed. typically the way we name our variables is set the instance variable. So set length. Now I do need to pass in some information. If I just call set length and I try to set the length, what am I assigning? 5? Well, you know, typically we want to assign it to something. We want to tell it what to assign it to. So we need to pass in this information. And in fact, just to show that I can name it anything I want, there we go. Because some of y'all had questions of, oh, does this have to be the same thing as this one? Well, no, not really, because remember, variable scope. This parameter only exists in this class, or this constructor. Sorry. And this parameter only exists in this method because it is defined in this method. Alright, let's go ahead and write one for set speed. And I'm giving my parameters pretty bad names right now, just to show you again that they're just names, variable names. Alright. Now, this is the gold standard typically, but we have the option, we're able to do it this way. It's not good practice though. Alright, let's write our toString. Now this toString method, it has to have the following method header. Public, string, because it's going to return a string, and it has to be called toString with no parameters. Again, everything I just typed is method header. Now for the body, we can put whatever we want in there as long as it returns a string. So what do I want to return? Well, typically in a toString, we return a string that consists of our instance variables. So for my ship, I'm going to go ahead and say my length is length meters and my speed is miles per hour, and semicolon. Okay, let's compile. Awesome. Now, if I go to BlueJ right now, I could right click and create a ship right now. Ship 1. And if I get length, oh, it returns the length. And remember, for the default constructor, I set the length to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it has a 0 at the end because I've treated it like a double. Okay. Let's go ahead and inspect, and we see that the length and the speed are right there. Awesome, but you know, I could go ahead and keep doing this. Name new ship. I need to pass in a parameter, let's say 5. Let's look at ship 2, inspect. The speed is 5. Alright, because if I look at my constructor, I'm setting the speed to whatever I pass in, and so forth. But as soon as I recompile it, they disappear. Let's go ahead and jump to part 2, my tester or runner class. I'm just going to call it ship runner. And let's code it. Again, I recommend you to start from scratch. So here's my class, and I'm going to make my default public static void main method. Now I know we haven't talked about static at all yet, and we haven't talked about arrays really at all either. So this is just one of those things that is custom. Now we don't have to make this method, we could make just a, I don't know, public static void whatever. This would work also, but we'll talk about that later. For now, just remember this. Alright, the first thing I want to do is to call this constructor. So I'm going to make a ship. Now let's break this down. Let's go ahead and treat it like int x equals 5. So what is happening? Well, int x, I'm saying x contains an integer, an int. Same thing right here. I'm saying blah doesn't contain a ship, but it points to a ship. Inside blah is a object reference to a ship object. Alright, and this right side is actually making the ship object. So again, we are defining and assigning in one step. Up here, we are also defining and assigning in one step. I could actually break this down to 2 steps. Right? It's just like what we've done before. Alright. But let's go ahead and make it in one step. Alright. So blah is going to contain an object reference to a ship object. And then I have the new keyword. This is telling me I'm allocating memory. And here is my ship constructor call. Which one? The one with no parameters. So it's going to go here. It's going to make me a ship with length that and speed that. Now let's go ahead and print out my ship. And again, remember, printing out this object reference variable is the same thing as printing out or calling the toString. In here, the toString is automatically called. So let's go ahead and compile. Let's run it. And see if we get the exact same thing. In both of those cases, the toString was called. Awesome. Now, I'm going to show you something else. Notice the speed variable is not private. So if it's not private, that means other classes can access that directly. So how do we do that? Well, what's my object? Blah. And I use dot. And what do I want to access? The speed. Not a statement. Alright, let's go ahead and print it out. There you go. Let's print it out. Now, what if I was nefarious and I wanted to do evil things to it? What if I wanted to set the speed to overdrive, I don't know, some really large number? Can it hold that large number? Oh, too large. Let's take a... Alright, and make the boat go really fast. Now, because this is not private access, I have access to it in my ship runner. And I can do that. And now my ship will go really fast, and everyone on it will probably die or fall off. So to prevent that, I would make it private. And it says speed has private access in ship. Now I can control if other people, other classes can access it. How? Well, I can choose whether or not to have a set speed. If I don't have this, then other classes cannot modify my speed. But this is just practicing making classes, so let's go ahead and keep that in there. So how do I get the speed now? Well, let's use the getSpeed function. And private access. So how can I assign a value to the speed? Well, let's use the setSpeed function. Blah dot set speed. And I'm going to set it to, I don't know, 1000. Okay. Now let's go ahead and print that out one more time so we can see the change. So it was 43.51, and then I set it to 1000. Awesome. Now, how about I try calling the other methods? Well, we've called a toString, we've called set speed, get speed. We can do the same thing with length and get length. But let's go ahead and make another ship. Let's make it the SSN. And let's go ahead and let's not use the default constructor. Let's use the 2 parameter one. So the length is the first parameter. Let's make it 100 meters long. I don't know how big that is. And speed, maybe 5 miles per hour. Alright, now let's go ahead and print out my SSN. And then let's go ahead and change the length of SSN. Set length. Let's change it to 1000. And then I'm going to go ahead and print out the length. Oh, I need to use the name, object name. There we go. So I'm going to look at SSN. SSN is a ship. So it's going to look in a ship class for the getLength method. And here it is. Alright, let's compile. Let's run it. So if we look at this code, here's SSN with a length of 100 meters and a speed of 5 miles per hour. Then I print it out, and it prints out this toString. I set the length to 1000, and I print out the length, and it's 1000. Awesome. So I think we've pretty much covered all of that class. Let's see. Now I did not use the 1 parameter constructor, but it's very similar to using the other constructors. You just pass it in 1 parameter. Now let's go ahead and make another class. This is pretty much part 3. So we had part 1, which is making the ship class, part 2 making a ship runner, and part 3 is when we make a bonus thing. Let's call it a fleet. And in my fleet class, what is a fleet consist of? Well, it is comprised of ship objects. Let's go ahead and give it 5 ship objects. Alright. Awesome. Now, let's go ahead and give the fleet a name. Also, maybe it's I don't know, the United States Awesome Fleet or something. Now, let's give it a constructor. How would I construct a fleet? Well, again, we know public, fleet, same name as the class. And let's go ahead and just give it a name first. So then this one will take in the name of the fleet. But what if I want to create these ship objects? How could I? Well, I could also do ship1 is a new ship and just call it a default one for all of them. Now let's go ahead and see if this works. Compile. It does work. And let's look right here. We see that ship and fleet are connected because fleet relies on the ship class for it to work. So what is happening? What's going on? Well, right here, I'm assigning a new ship, and I'm calling this constructor to my ship 1. So here I'm defining it, here I'm assigning it. Can you pause the video and try to complete the other ships? Awesome, how'd that go? Well, let's go ahead and call constructors for the other ships. I can use another constructor. This will call my 1 parameter constructor right here. This will call my 2 parameter constructor right here. And so on. Whoops. Awesome. So what is a fleet made of? It is made of 5 ships. I just made up that number, but here we have 5 ships and a name. Same thing for a ship, same concept. What does a ship consist of? A length and a speed for our ship. What does a fleet consist of? 5 ships and a name. And here's our constructor that we could use. And just like the ship class, you could, have more than 1 constructor. Awesome. I hope this is a good start to your review. Now for the other ones, the teacher class, the book rec class, very similar. Alright, so I added on a little bit more with the fleet class, but if you do the ship and ship runner for essentially the teacher and book rec, then you should be good to go. But this is definitely nice to know for the ship class or the fleet class. Alright, good luck on your quiz and study hard.